Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Anne Cloud. Anne is technically a first act actor, and then did a pivot to she did a mega pivot into a career in healthcare. She went to nursing school, became a nurse practitioner, midwife, doula, and worked as that for quite a significant amount of time. And then, and you'll hear her story, it's amazing, she flipped into a career in voiceover acting. Her story is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. If you watch this on YouTube, obviously listen to what Anne has to say, but then maybe you listen to it again and just watch my face when she's telling her story, because I just was eyes wide, mouth agape, grin on my face, like a little maniacal, because her story is so powerful and brought me immense joy to hear how she's lived her life, how she has built her life, changed her career, and tried to find joy, creativity in capitalism, which we mentioned a lot in this podcast. She, like I said, is now a full-time voiceover actor. So we have that discussion about voiceover acting, getting into that gig, et cetera, et cetera. But this episode is so much more than that. I am so excited for you to hear her story. Please enjoy Anne Cloud. Tell me how you got into this crazy business. Tell me your story.
Okay. So I acted as a kid. So I was a theater kid, and my family was a bluegrass family band, and I was like not in the bluegrass family band because I was an actor. And I was totally that kid. It was like all I did, all I cared about. And I went to school. My first bachelor's degree was in theater and dance, and I got a BFA in theater, and 2 days after graduation moved to New York and was like, I'm doing this thing. And then while I was living there, I had a friend who was a doula, and she had a home birth, and she asked me to come and be there. It was her third baby, and be like with her two little kids while she had this baby at home in like a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City, in Chelsea. And I went and I was with her two other kids, and it felt so magical and life-changing to be at that birth. It's funny to say that now, having been at so many births that were not magical and life-changing, but that one was, and I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to do that. And so I moved back to Colorado, and it didn't happen right away because I was like not willing to, I wanted to be a nurse midwife. And so I wanted to go get my master's degree, which you have to first have a bachelor's of nursing to go get your master's of nursing. And I wasn't willing to do a long program. I wanted to be in an accelerated program. So I worked some other jobs for a while and eventually did nursing school, an accelerated program in nursing school. I was a terrible nurse. I hated it and I was bad at it. And then immediately started my master's program right after I graduated from nursing school and became a nurse practitioner and midwife. And during that process had 2 babies of my own, and that kind of shifted what I wanted to do, in that, I had cared so much about women's health, which I still do very deeply, but cared so much about women's health and advocacy around, birth and postpartum and family planning and all these things. And then once I had my own babies, it just shifted so much to being about them and working 24-hour shifts and the sort of life and death and really extreme, intense emotions of being a nurse practitioner and a midwife didn't appeal anymore. And I started working for an OB in outpatient, and I was working a little bit and doing, like breastfeeding stuff for patients and postpartums and family planning, just outpatient. And then had a third baby. And none of that made sense anymore. So I started staying home with the kids. And then my husband and I were on a trip in the Pacific Northwest, and we were at the top of this mountain, like on this hike, and there was this van, and this Frenchman like rolls out of his van, and his wife rolls out, and she's pregnant, and they've got this like 3-year-old, and they all roll out like they were just waking up, and he starts like cooking eggs, and we started visiting with them, and they were living in this van, and they had moved here and had a 3-month visa, and were just traveling full time in this converted van, and then they were going to Canada to travel for 3 months in Canada, and he was like, "Why would you not do this? Like, this is our only life." And though he was like super passionate about it, and that night my husband and I went home, and we were like, we should buy a van and like move into a van. And we realized a van would be too small. And so we bought a bus, and we like just randomly we're like, oh, how do you buy a bus? And here's an auction site. And look, in Colorado where we live, there's a bus for sale at this school district. We'll just put a, $1,500 offer on it. And the next day we got an email that was like, you own a bus, come and get it. And we were like, oh my God. And so we went and we got the bus, and we brought it home, and it sat in our yard for a couple of years. And then I did not anything, but he converted it into a tiny home, and it was beautiful. It is beautiful. He did an amazing job. But I was like, we need income while we're living full time on the road. And I heard a podcast that was like, I got a divorce, but I'm still able to homeschool my kids because I'm a voice actor working from home. And I was like, I could do that. And so I did. And we moved onto our bus in January of 2020. And my husband sold his company, and I went full time, and just was like, I'm a full-time actor now. I'm a full-time voice actor now, and just went all in on that. And it has been incredibly good for our family. And we settled in Asheville a couple years later in the end of 2021. So we were on the bus for 2 years, and I have been like doing voiceover, for the last 5 years, and it's been supporting our family, and it's been shockingly good for me and for us. And to like look back at my theater and everybody who was like, theater, you should have a backup, and like, that's never you're gonna struggle always. And I make way more money now than I made as a nurse practitioner. And I feel like I work 25 hours a week from home, and it's like the best job I could have ever imagined. So there's a long story.
No, I was like, I don't think my face moved. I was just like, this is incredible. I love, to be honest with you, besides everything being so rare and fascinating about your story, there's not many people that I've chatted with, I'm sure they exist in this world, who started out as like the theater kid, did a job switch into the more practical, logical career path, and then came back around. I have so many other questions. My first question is, especially as a fellow healthcare worker, do you miss it?
No.
Oh, I feel that in my soul.
Want to say that I do, but I don't.
Society wants you to say you do too.
When it's like delicious is when somebody asks me questions and I'm like, oh, let me just tell you, right? And like, you could have this kind of experience, or you could do this, or what they're telling you is not the only way to go about your birth experience, or somebody's talking about like perimenopause and I'm like, ding, I know about this, and like what you're learning isn't the whole story, So sometimes I could in a different season of this life, I could do like advocacy maybe, or something like that. But I don't think I would ever go back to practice. And there was great stuff, right? There is nothing like catching babies. It is so magical. Even when it's horrible, the moment that like there's a new person on the planet where there wasn't a person before is crazy. It's crazy every single time. And that is like such a thrilling feeling. Like, oh my God, this person didn't exist 1 moment ago and now there's a person here. And so that high of that, but the stuff that goes along with it, no, I don't miss it. I just don't miss it.
I have let me know if this resonates with you, because again, so much of what you're saying, I'm like, I have a very vivid memory of when I was in graduate school, because I thought I would be a prof. I thought I would teach. And I was in graduate school and I did this graduate project that was very patient forward. It was very like I was communicating, I was interviewing people, I was discussing like alternative health models and stuff like that. I was like, yeah. And then when I got into the thick of the research, I was like, oh, I hate this so much. And I remember my graduate supervisor was like, okay, so you are not happy, I can see. What did you like about this? And I'm like, well, I thought this would be more about like the patience and like the talking and the communication and the, like you were saying, the curiosity and let's collaborate. And it's not. And he goes, oh, well, then I think if you want that, you should consider going to medical school. Because that's like more the patient forward, right? And I was like, God damn it, that's so much harder, right? But I think about what you were just saying, right? There are, of course, the healthcare system can be absolute garbage trash. But like what I love so much about it is when collaboration, when you can be more creative, when you can be open with your patients and chat and explore with them. Unfortunately, like you were saying, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's pure magic.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, does that translate into why you've always been a creative, or like why you went back to why you went back to acting? Because that's acting, right? That's being with people, that's storytelling, that's empathy, and that's what actors are.
It really is. I mean, I feel like when I got into voice acting, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you would do great at medical narration, because you have this." And I tried it, and I was like, "This sucks. I hate this so much." And it's a lot, right, of medical narration. It's people who do it, I have like mad respect, and I do it sometimes, but it's heartless.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? It's like, it's teaching. It's like informational. And that is just not what I do. It's not what I liked in midwifery. It's not what I like in acting. It's not what I like in voice acting. I like the piece that's like a web that connects my heart to somebody else's heart, which makes me feel like this is important work, because it's easy to feel like this is not important work, especially after having caught babies, right? Like that was important work. That felt like important, good work. You get to the end of the day and you're like, I do something important. And then when you're here and you're like selling Tide Pods, you're like, maybe less so, right? But every time, you're behind the mic, like there's somebody hearing it on the other side, even if it's not the end user, even if it's just the casting agent hearing your audition. And like, there's power in that. There's magic in that. And it's like this thin web of energy that's connecting you to this other person. And that was true. That storytelling piece, that connection piece, that was true in healthcare. And that's when it would light you up, right? It's not charting. Nobody goes into it for charting. It's when you're like sitting with a patient and they trust you and they care about what you have to say. Like that's what any of us in any profession like want out of our relationships in the world, right?
Do you find you've brought in things from your career as a midwife, as a nurse practitioner, now into your career as a voiceover actor? Besides, obviously, like you were saying, like, sure, I can medically narrate anything because I know the language, but anything else that you've brought in from that career that now in your voiceover career?
So I am a big believer, right? Like this is, I feel like such a crummy thing to say. I'm not even sure I should, but I feel like you get to be like people, it's really hard for people to be good actors till they've experienced things in life. Like every 20-year-old who's in a BFA program is going to hate that I say that. And I would have hated me for saying that because like, no, I'm a very good actor. Fuck you. But I really feel like acting has become so much more natural and easy as I'm in my 40s now. And I feel like, as you experience life, it's really, really so much easier to access that. And there was so much in healthcare, right? You're dealing with people who lose babies, or the joy of having a new baby, or being in an appointment with someone who it finds out at the same time that she's pregnant and she has an STD from her husband, right? Who horrifying things and wonderful things, and being really, really in tune with that and close to that, because you're like, I'm it, right? I'm with you in this appointment and we're going to have to figure this out together. Like that, just like anything though, right? Whatever your experience is in life, I feel like you can take it so easily into acting, and healthcare puts you, at least as a nurse, I don't know. My brother is a doctor, and I will tell you, I'm not sure what level doctors, if doctors really connect on the same level as nurse, but we were like in it together. Like yeah. we're here together, experiencing this together, which is why it's a really hard career. And you leave the end of the day so exhausted, emotionally, because you enter into life with people. And so that certainly has carried over and made, my acting, I think, much more well-informed.
Yeah, I remember when I was first starting into my acting career and feeling like I've wasted so many years of my life becoming a doctor because I could have been going to theater school. And I remember an acting teacher saying to me, like, one, are you insane? That you sound like a lunatic, because you are literally in a laboratory witnessing the human condition more closely and more intimately than I honestly think any other career. Like healthcare workers, frontline workers in healthcare, nowhere else, I think, can you, for free, witness the human condition in front of you in every way that it shows up.
Yes. 100%. Maybe, well, not in every way that it shows up. I was trying to think like what else, like being like somebody who's like a judge or somebody who sees people coming through in these like really, but it's like, because as healthcare providers, right, you're in people's like most extreme moments in life. Maybe not like weddings too, right? Weddings are a big deal, but like we see people have babies and lose people and experience like extreme moments of stress and like all of that. When you have that real heightened sense of life, everything, that's where acting takes place, right? You don't see a bunch of movies and TV and stuff that's just about like going through everyday life, right? We see things that have like catharsis and stuff, and that's what happens in healthcare.
Do you find, like, I'm curious about when you made the switch from a career path that has a very distinct, like, this is what you must do to achieve the certificate on the wall that says, I am allowed to deliver your baby and give you health advice. And you move into a career that's honestly could be the wild, wild west. How did you build your VO career when there isn't really like, here's the certificate, now you can practice as a voiceover actor, congratulations. How did you build it?
Totally. I think that's such a good question, because I think people like me want to have that, right? I sought that out. Like, just give me the play-by-play of everything I need to do. I will do it. And then I want to have my career as an actor. Like, just tell me what to do. And I still am looking for that. I feel like I'm still in conversations all the time with like agents and managers going like, well, but what should I do next? The thing that I did and would recommend to anyone, if you're able to do it, I recognize that I was in a place of real privilege to be able to go into voice acting this way. But my husband sold his company and we moved on to a bus. So, not that everyone should do that piece, but I didn't. I just said from day one, I'm a full-time voice actor. And I went all in the same way. And I kept thinking, right? Like, when I said I wanted to be a midwife, I committed to, an 18-month accelerated nursing program that cost like $50,000 and a 2-year master's program that cost like $50,000. And I stopped doing other things. And that was 3 years of my life and a lot of money. And I kind of had that same perspective when I started voice acting. So I was like, this is my full-time job. I'm going to go into the booth 30 hours a week. Did I always make it 30 hours a week that first year? Not really. But my plan was to go in 30 hours a week and fucking figure out what to do with myself, and put in a lot of money into I'm not gonna, I didn't start with Audacity. I started with my paid, and I didn't start with a free version of Source Connect. I went all in and got the Source Connect, and I paid someone to do my branding, and I paid someone to do my website, and got expensive demos and a lot of coaching. And I thought of it as this will be my next season. This will be my next career in my life. And so I'm going all in on it. And it worked out really well for me. That first year, I think in 2020, I made $11,000 and put in $25,000 or $30,000. And then the next year I made 6 figures. And I have people ask me a lot, well, how do I get to making 6 figures in voiceover? And I do think that was a huge part of it being so successful. Also, I was super lucky. Also, I had, an acting background. Also, there were things that fell into place for me in a way that the timing was just really good. But I really feel like the biggest thing was that I went all in right from the start. So there was never any dabbling or hobby voice actor. I was just this is who I am and what I'm doing. And so I just owned it from the beginning,
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's funny. The person I was chatting with before you said something along the lines of when it keeps, talking about oh, I know I'm so lucky, and it's no, but I also worked really fucking hard.
Totally.
Sure, there's some serendipity and synchronicity, but she's there. I have a calling, and it just kept calling. So I was I'm going all in. Sure, it could be luck. It could be timing, whatever. But I also work really fucking hard. So I'm going to acknowledge that. And I was yeah.
Good on her. I feel especially as women, I am so quick to quickly say oh, but it wasn't me, right? I'm not going to own that I'm great at this or that I worked hard. I'm going to just kind of go oh, the stars aligned and right?
It's not me at all. It's external to me. Right. Yeah. You're nope, it was all me.
When I first started, I remember my mom, hopefully she doesn't listen to this, but she's a musician. She's a great musician. And when I first started making money, she was oh, I should be a voice actor, right? And she was just I have a microphone. And she totally has said that multiple times in that early stages. I think, eventually I was let me tell you what it takes to actually move into voice acting, right? But I was very much just well, I should try this. I should try to do voice acting. She doesn't talk like that at all. She's totally not from, the Midwest. But she, it made me so pissed, because I was that's me saying I have a guitar. I should go be a famous musician and start booking gigs, because you're booking gigs and you have a guitar. Just because you have a microphone doesn't mean you're good at it. It's not easy. And people think it's easy, but it's not easy. It should be. It's easy now because I put in the work, but it wasn't easy. And I think people who start voice acting especially, acting always, it looks hard, right? Acting is hard. Acting for the camera, acting on stage, it's hard. It's delicious and it's hard. Voice acting looks easy. It's you're just reading. I feel people say that to me all the time without thinking that that's offensive. Oh, so basically you just go in there and you read? No, that's not at all what I do. But that's what it looks like. And then people will also say, right? I'll be look at this cool thing I did. And they'll listen and they'll be it just sounds like you talking. And I'm yeah, it's shockingly hard. shockingly hard.
So that's my question. I love chatting with voiceover actors because what I can only imagine is, is that your imagination must be just light years above like the normies. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you're in this booth, and I think about, of course, and I think a lot of us immediately go to like either animation or video games. And it's like, okay, you're now on the, Death Star and getting shot at, but you're getting shot in the shoulder, not in the stomach. So that sounds different. And you have to envision this like world around you, but meanwhile, you're standing in what looks like an elevator in an industrial complex. Like, have you always been a really imaginative human and being able to surround yourself to propel a voiceover forward when you have to actually, it's almost like humanize it. You have to talk to someone and and talk to and be in an environment and imagine that. Like, has that always been you, or is that something you think you can develop with training?
100% you can develop it. I think you can develop anything with training. I really do. And with practice, because everything's a practice, right? And the 10,000 hours or whatever. But the things I think with voiceover are that, I had two thoughts while you were saying that, because I was going to say first that video games and animation, it's easier because they tell you, right? It's like reading sides of a script. So you know where you are most of the time, unless it's an audition. When you've booked the job, you know who you are, you know where you are, you know what's going on. I did a video game recently and I'm like a half cyborg sex, like, cause everything in video games, right, is if you're a female, you're either sexy or like an old hag.
What do they call it? Boots and bras?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you got big boots and big bras.
Yes.
Big boobs and bras. Yeah.
Yes. But like he's able to tell me exactly, now you're jumping through this glass ceiling and you're landing hard and you're throwing off your cloak and right, like, so I don't have to imagine. He's told me everything that's happening. And so then it's easy for my brain to go like, there's glass shattering and I've got this heavy pack and blah, blah, blah. It's when which is 95% of what I do is commercial, corporate, and political. And those are hard because nobody tells you who you're talking to. Nobody tells you where you're at. Nobody tells you even what you're supposed to be feeling or even what they want the audience to feel. They give you this word like, professional or conversational. And you're supposed to take that and make this have meaning to the person on the other end. It's so much harder to then go into something that actually will hit the listener in their heart, And so I always have to have an imagination because otherwise you sound like you're reading. Like that's where everybody fails, right? Is you have to be saying it for a reason because in acting, like if you don't know why you're saying what you're saying, then everybody knows that you don't know why you're saying what you're saying. And so you have to like come up with this whole scenario and you have to make it all up. But also I will say with video games, my second thought while you were talking was that with video games and animation, what is harder is it's a dialogue. With everything else, it's not a dialogue. And so that is easier, right? But like, I just had a podcast drama, I think, isn't that what we call them? Come out, and listening to it, I was like, that turned out surprisingly well for me, having never met that other actor, and us being, having just like conversation after conversation, and I'm on my side going like, yeah, you're right. Right? Without ever hearing their lines.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And so that piece with anything like video games, podcast dramas, that piece is hard because you don't have a reader, you don't have somebody, that you're working off of. And so as an actor, like, right, you memorize your lines and then you go to the set and all of a sudden the acting is easy because there's another good actor there who you play off of and your energy builds together and your charisma and like sparks are flying, right? And it's like, this is good, juicy stuff. But when you're like doing it by yourself in the booth and then and then they say, okay, yeah. And then I say, that is harder. That is harder.
Yeah. Holy. Again, that's another thing that makes me rage when people are like, it looks so easy. Again, I think it's because, you don't need anything external to do the job. Oh, sure, you need a mic, you need a blah, blah, blah. But like, it's not like it's you. It's you. It's your body. It's not like I've made a chair and you're now looking at the chair that I have made. It's like, no, it's all in here in me.
Yeah.
And also, I think people automatically go, oh, that's so easy when it is a career in whimsy, which is what this is, right? Like
career in whimsy.
Some of these whimsical careers.
God, I want a bumper sticker that says that. That should be like the tagline of your show.
Yes. Careers
in whimsy. I love it. A career in whimsy.
Logical career paths, and you should probably do something else. What's your plan B? Yeah.
Yes. What is your plan B? Like, everybody always wants to know.
I know. Do you have any advice for people looking to either change careers into a more whimsical one, or maybe kind of mesh the two together, like being able to do both at the same time?
I don't have good advice. You should give people good advice. Because for me, voice acting doesn't feel like a career in whimsy. It really feels like a job, like a great job that I love and that really awesome stuff comes out of. But, for me, voice acting is about the money. I support our family on my voice acting career, right? And so I am really here to make money. And it's not like me going like, I want to go do on camera work now, right? Because I love it. And it's like this juicy, delicious thing that fills my soul. This doesn't do that for me. Voice acting is a job, but it just happens to be an awesome job. But it truly doesn't fill my like creative tank most of the time in the way that acting on stage does, But I guess, I thought as a young actor in New York who wanted to do like guerrilla theater and like street theater, like because it was important work to like be changing the world with theater, And I had so much like energy and heart around that. And so that my 20-year-old self would 100% be calling me a sellout. Like I wouldn't do commercial work when I lived in New York. I was like, no way. I'm not auditioning for like commercials, right? That's such a sellout thing to do. And so I don't know. I can't marry those two sides of myself because she still exists going like, yes, we should be changing the world with our art. And when you say whimsy, that's what I think of. Like people who want to do it for their soul, they should just do it for their soul and not think about like whatever you have to do to like make your money and then go support your soul. Because once you try to marry the two, I think it's really can be detrimental to both. Because once you try to make money doing the thing that fills your soul, all of a sudden you like aren't making as much money and it's not really filling your soul. I don't know. That's maybe really bad advice. Nobody should listen to that.
No, I think that's it's fascinating because I think the issue with the issue with society, let me get on my soapbox, is the fact that we think that shouldn't be the case, but then because immediately we're like, oh, that's bad advice. But then we also aren't allowed to think that any other way of doing things is the correct way, and we shame people for doing it. Like, okay, you have to have a job that makes you money, but you're not allowed to enjoy it because you're supposed to suffer like the rest of us, right? I hate my job. Yeah. But you're also allowed to like have a job that makes you money that you go, this is a really great job. I really enjoy it. But most people, when they hear that, go, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to be hating this life. You know, you're supposed to be on the grind being like, this sucks. You're like, no, I'm allowed to like my job, but also I'm allowed to have it make money and also not be the thing that is my sole purpose on this planet. I just find people feel like, I don't know, the world feels like you have to have them all in these little boxes and never all of them shall meet. And maybe that's true. That probably doesn't exist. Or you hear the people who are like, yes, I love my job. It is my calling. I also make a butt ton of money and all of my needs are met. You're like, okay.
Yeah, who are those people?
Who are those people? But then the other people that exist are saying, no, never, and shame you for that. Like, there's no allowing of all of us to just be like, huh, this is just what I'm doing to function in society.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I do other things. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, but I have this feeling over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, why aren't we allowed to just let all of these things happen instead of just being like, no, this is what it's supposed to be?
And we label. It's partly because we like label things and then we have to live within these labels, right? You are what you do. And as opposed to like being this amalgam of all of these things, like I have this job, like I still consider myself a midwife, even though like I, don't catch babies anymore. It's still part of who I am. And I am a voice actor and I still kind of sometimes think like I'm a real actor too, like I can be all those things.
Yeah, totally. I think there's also, and you touched on a really interesting thing. I remember reading this is Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. And, she kind of mentioned that, right? Like as soon as you put, like there's the hierarchy of needs, right? As soon as you put your art giving you all those needs of like food and shelter and stuff like that, as soon as you put your art as the only way to do that, it just sucks your soul away. Like there's desperation that seeps in.
Yeah.
And then it's, and I know I could wax poetic about it. There's problems with that statement because we can talk about that. That's the patriarchal society talking ding dong. But I think there's truth there, right? And I know I'm also speaking in the fact that like this is also justifying my existence doing medical work and art at the same time. But I think, I don't know where I was going with this. It was just, again, it makes me happy to hear how you are building your life. Because I think it sounds like it makes so much sense for you, for your family, for your community, for your storytelling ability. And I think it's like so fucking refreshing.
I mean, I do think that like, we don't have to like be one thing or another, right? Like how many children's books are there that say that? I think a fuck ton. I read books to my kids all the time that say like, you don't have to just have one emotion. You can have two at the same time. You don't have to be just one thing. It's a spectrum. Like that needs to be true for us too, And I think like, and also I think it should be okay if you're like, I really wish that I wasn't working in healthcare. I don't know if this is true for you. For me, it was. I really wish I wasn't working in healthcare anymore. What can I do to like have a job that's like doing something that I really enjoy and I like fills me up, but doesn't have to be my life purpose? I feel like I had to like get to that place with voice acting because right early on, I was like, I should be doing video games and animation because that's fun. Right? That's like acting. It feels like acting to me. Whereas the other stuff feels different. I don't know. I'm about to get on a tangent here, but I think there are a lot of people who are like, voice actors are actors. And then there's other people who are like, nope, not so much. And I don't know where I land in that. But to me, there is a difference when you're playing a character and when you're basically yourself, which 90% of what I do is Anne as a CEO, Anne as a mom, Anne as a whatever, right? Like most of the work I do is some version of myself, which I think the argument could be made that all acting is that, but I lost my train of thought. I don't know. I got off on a tangent and I lost it.
No, it's great. It's interesting, like, the whole idea of like, is voice acting really high art, right?
Right.
I don't know. And again, we could talk about, how most theater kids I talk to were so disillusioned when they were in theater school because they're doing Shakespeare and Chekhov and I'm going to, like you were saying, gorilla, I want art. And then they move into the world and the only auditions they're getting is like, showing me like, can you eat a Taco Bell burrito?
Right.
No, I'm not going to hire you to be an actor.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Yes. It's true in the acting world too, right? Not just voice acting. And I think that, when you look at the dollars, which we all have to look at, we're not sellouts for feeding our family. When you look at the dollars, it's like, because we live in a capitalist society, it's anything that sells something, whether you're selling a product or you're selling a company with corporate narration, or you're selling a radio station, or you're selling a political campaign, those things pay money. The stuff where it's like the podcast drama I was in, it's not making money. And it was so fun, but it's not making money. And so it doesn't pay well. And I think that's true in regular acting as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you mentioned a lot of the projects that you've been a part of. Do you have any favorite moments from your time in the booth? Any funny stories?
Recently this is so embarrassing, but I had so you do voice acting stuff, Janet, right?
A little bit, not too much, but yeah,
you should. You should call me later.
Yeah.
A lot of sessions. So some sessions happen on Source Connect, which is audio only. But a lot of my sessions, when they're direct with a client, they happen on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. And, I am a camera on kind of person. And, I was doing a session for something. I have no idea what it even was. Something corporate, where we're talking about how we're going to get through this together, because that's what every corporate script says. And I did the script, and the guy goes, it was a white man, shocker, says I had to look away from the screen because your face is really distracting.
Oh my Lord.
I was just like, oh, well, I'm happy to turn my camera off. And he was like, yeah, we're not going to do it again because that read was perfect. But I am just telling you that so that, in the future, you can make a better choice with your next clients. And I was just like, first of all, unsolicited advice from a white man. I don't need any more in my whole life.
No.
Second, my face is distracting. Really? So since
sounds
then,
that was a problem.
Yeah, sounds like I wish I would have said that. It's been a couple of months. And now every time when I get ready to do a session and I've got my camera on, I say that. I say do you want me to turn my camera off? Because I have been told my face is distracting. And to a person, everybody is like, oh no, I love it that you're willing to leave your camera on. It really helps me to hear it and feel it in a different way. So I'm just like, that guy. But
what? Oh, I hate this dude. Oh my God. It's funny. My brain was like, not all men, but always a man.
Yes. A man. Yes.
Oh my Lord. That's so annoying. Oh.
Yeah. That guy.
God. Well, it's so funny because we love, as actors, and I think the general population loves to see those behind the scenes videos of people doing the voiceover and being like, wow, look at their face. They have to do all this crazy stuff. Isn't that so cool?
Totally.
Screw that.
Screw that guy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that sounds like a him problem. He needs to go to therapy. Do you have anything that you are looking forward to coming up?
Last year I started a collective of voice actors called Voiceover for the Planet, and it has been the highlight. Outside my career highlight of 2024. My kids, and obviously, they're my highlight always. But it has been so cool. It has been so fun. And we just decided, me and some friends decided, this feels good and important. Let's create this collective of, voice actors who want to work with value-aligned companies. And because, like I said, Tide Pods, right? And you make the connection work and you do it, and you make it feel good and feel important. But when you're actually doing work that's actually important, it really feels good. And so working with value aligned companies and doing work, we also do pro bono work for startups that are change makers and stuff. And it's so delicious and fun, and it has morphed into its whole own thing, and it's just keeps growing and becoming different than I ever expected. So that I'm really every day I'm excited to see where that goes next.
Awesome. And I'll put a link in the show notes below just where people can find that. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
I think kind of, what I was talking about before about why it worked for me with voiceover was that I went all in, and I feel like, we don't really encourage people to like jump in to things. But that's sort of how I've always done life, is all in, all at once. And it's worked for me. So I don't know, maybe that would be it. Also, I heard the best podcast with, I'm not going to remember her name. She was the White Witch in Narnia. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
What is her name? She's awesome.
She's awesome. Oh man.
She's been that's the first thing I think of, but she's been in like everything and she's so good. And she said that like the life comes first and the art comes from the life. And I keep thinking about that because it feels to me like that's how I try to do my life, right? Like the work comes from the life. And we just spent my family just spent the month of February in New Zealand, and we just like doing life, I'm still working, but we were doing life. And it's easy, I think, to get so caught up, right, in our days and in our work and in all of the things that need to get done. And it just was a great reminder for me that like all the good stuff comes out of life. So we got to focus on the life, and then everything good comes out of that. So
before we kick stop, I have to ask, is your VO booth in your bus?
No.
Okay.
No, it used to be. My VO booth, it was in a cargo trailer that we pulled with the bus. And it was cool. There's a video on my website if you want to see it. And my husband like tricked it out. It was good. It was a great booth. But now we're, stationary, and the bus is being revamped to be my office.
That is so cool. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Anne, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, to share your powerful story, how you've built your incredible life with me and with my listeners. I so appreciate you. Yeah, I love when this happens, and excuse my rant here for a second. I have never met Anne in person. We literally just met here on the online interwebs. And there is an immediate feeling of like, I feel like I've known her my whole life. I feel like there's a kindred spirit here and we're now friends. It's that joke from Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends? And I feel that so much from the incredible actors I have on my show. You could just see her passion and joy and, love for what she does and love for the incredible life she has built. I so appreciate that, Anne. Thank you. Again, it was a true honor to speak with you. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!